Hey guys, Longman here, back for another deck profile, and as you can see from the title, we are back with some more insect power, but in a much different way. As of recording this video, there has been a new ban list that actually, well, not ban list, but more like a restricted list. Grandis essentially, or GranKuwaga in general, like the deck itself, got hit. GranKuwagamon can now only be limited to one copy per deck, which essentially kills that deck because even though that deck has decent search power, it's not on the level of like Greymon or Metal Garurumon or any of the other decks that got hit basically. So the deck basically is dead in the water at this point, unless they maybe put it back up to two, maybe three. Then it might be viable, but even then, it's not that great compared to how it used to be. So at that point, and then as you know, I just put out a deck profile where I actually won third place at my store championship with that deck. And it coincidentally was the night right before the ban, which is really weird and kind of funny in a sense because maybe they heard about my insect power. But anyway, essentially what happened is now I was like trying to think, is there any other insectoid deck aside from like Green Hybrid and like Hercules Kabuterimon that's actually decent and like can even really do anything in this meta? And I did look at both of those decks. Um, Hercules Kabuterimon has basically been out of the meta since like the release of the starter deck because it made some waves and then it just disappeared. Same with like any other green hybrid deck past like BT7, it just disappeared off the face of the map. At this point, it's mainly a meme. It's just there to just kind of like be there and just to make a joke at this point. I feel because it's like in just looking at the decks have made nothing, no splash, and the fact is that a lot of decks outclass it now with how much power it has. Like every deck has a way to protect from deletion or just go really hard and faster than normal, even though it is a hybrid deck. So I went and looked around, and then I saw that coincidentally, BT12, the newest set that we had just gotten, actually got new GranKuwaga support. And I looked at it and I'm like, oh, this card's actually not too bad. But at the same time, it's built in mind to work with the new Imperial and the old Imperial support, which is why we now have this Jogress GranKuwaga deck, which is really crazy. This deck mainly uses almost all of the old Imperial support and the new stuff, but at the same time, it can search GranKuwaga mainly because it is a free type, and everything in the deck searches free types. So basically, you have a chance to basically grab it no matter what. And the fact is, it actually does have an alternate evolution clause specifically for Dino Beamon, which is really cool because, as you know, most Imperial decks run at least 2 to 3 Dino Bees. And the new Dino Bee is actually better than the original because not only does it suspend something, but it also gains attack power and it trashes the security when you delete something with the guy basically above it. So that's really powerful. So I basically figured out a build involved with it. Originally, the build that I found actually ran 2 Bancho Stingmons, but it doesn't really work as well with this deck because the only thing that can legitimately search this in the deck is Davis, and we don't really run that many Davis in the build. So I feel like it's not as good, and I went full on with the GranKuwaga because he's still very strong in this deck because you can actually boost him, give him jamming, give him draws. He's just so strong in this deck. So anyway, let me show you the deck profile so you guys can get what I mean. So for the eggs, we're running the 4 Demi Vs. This one is the one that when attacking once per turn, if it has jamming, trigger draw 1, and most of the time you will be swinging with jamming, so you will get that extra draw 1, and potentially if you Jogress that same turn, you get an extra draw. So that's 2 cards you're drawing, which is really solid. So I like running this one over the other Demi Vs because all they really do is either, the only other one that works is the one that was used in like Rookie Rush and like Armor Rush, but that one, it's okay, but I feel like this works better because now we have a lot of jamming in this build that we can utilize it a bit better than the other one. And the other ones from the starter decks only give a plus 1,000 boost depending on how many cards you have in hand, so they're not as good. So we stick with this egg and maybe add a 5th egg potentially down the line depending on where we're going with this. Maybe Wanyamon, but for now it's not really, I haven't really thought of it. But anyway, let's get into the rookies. So rookies, we are of course running the new BT12 Vmon. This guy is awesome. Like he's just literally like in that picture, he's just chilling. Like the fact that on play he gets to search not only one 3-type with Imperial Dramon in its name and a free type and the secondary card as a Davis, that's really strong. And not only that is that it has the inherent to basically Jogress at the end of your turn. And with the new support, you can actually pass turn to 1 and go back to 1 again. So that you can actually go into the Jogress bottom deck or suspend their dude and pierce through their guy, which is really cool. I love how this new Vmon works. And then I can also say the same for the new Wormmon in BT12 too, because he has basically the exact same effect as Vmon, except that he's just green. That's literally the only difference. And it's just these two are just so good like in this deck now. Like the old Vmons and Wormmons that used to run in the other old Imperial build were okay, but they had very like a lot of limitations. But with these two, you can search like a lot more stuff, which is really nice. Then we also run 4 of the jamming Vmons from BT3. These are still my original copies that I've been using since my Rookie Rush days. So shout out to my friend Jason, who I play with at locals. This is still the same exact copies that I got from him back then for 25 bucks, and totally worth it because these cards are still good even to BT12. So pretty solid purchase. And then the last rookie we run, or our 13th rookie basically, is just a Vmon from the starter deck. This one is still pretty decent. It searches anything with 3-type. So basically we just want this just in case so that if we don't see these other searchers, we have this guy to search. And yeah, that's basically the reason why we run these. Let me move these rookies so we can get to the level 4 champions or adult stage. First off, for that, we run the 4 Stingmon. This Stingmon is still very solid. The fact that its inherit gives you a draw 1 and it's not once per turn, but also its effect of being able to hard play whenever there's a blue, you basically make it 3 costs, so you can actually Jogress and go back on your turn every time, so it's really solid. So you got to run at least 4 copies of this. I feel like running any less, and you kind of have a issue where you might not see enough greens. So I like running at least 4. Then we run 2 of the XVmon from EX1 still. This guy is still very solid. I might actually change up the ratio to do like 3 of him and 3 of the new one. But for now, I'm running only 2 for now. And he's still really solid. The fact that he just has jamming by default and he gives jamming, so it's really decent. Then we run 2 of the new Stingmon. The new Stingmon, it's decent. It basically like it has a really cool. It has a similar effect to the new XVmon. Whenever you would DNA Digivolve with a blue Digimon, you basically gain 1 memory, which is basically what you're gonna do in this deck no matter what. So you will gain back that memory, and then it has a really good inherent of giving piercing. So you can actually give piercing to your level 6 every time because of him. So really solid to at least run 2. Then we run 4 of the new XVmons because it's still a really good XVmon and it gives jamming, which you really want in this deck, especially if you're going with the GranKuwaga like I am, because it does not have jamming built in. It mainly just suspends and gains memory, but this will give it that extra jamming, so really nice to have this. And yeah, that's basically all the level 4s we run. We run about like 12. This is mainly because we do a lot of Jogressing, and with one of our level 6s, we can summon back a blue and a green, so that helps us just keep going and set up for next turn to kind of swarm them, basically, so really solid. For level 5s, we still, of course, run the old Jogress Pyodramon from the starter deck. This guy is still since BT, like 9 or 10, this card is still decent from then to BT12 now because it's just so powerful. The fact that you get to just evolve into this for free with Jogress, and you get to bottom deck a guy, and you get to unsuspend, that's just too strong. Because basically with how you use this guy now, you basically swing, unsuspend, draw like 2 cards, and then you evolve into GranKuwaga, suspend, gain a memory, basically pierce through their guy if they're still not dead, and then you'll just chill there for next turn, and then maybe make another stack in here. So that's basically how we use them in this deck. Still a very solid card. You have to run at least 4. We are running 3 of the new Dino Bee. The new Dino Bee is actually really strong. I know that the previous one could suspend and make it so they couldn't unsuspend, but a lot of people can usually get around that kind of effect now, so it's not really that big of an issue. The main issue is to just kill their dude at this point. We don't really like want to just bounce them back to him. We want them dead. So this one, when you DNA Digivolve, when Digivolving if you DNA Digivolve, you can suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, and this guy gains plus 3,000. And mainly, the reason why I like him more over the previous Dino Bee is the fact that he actually has a really good inherit on your turn when basically a Digimon with Imperial Digimon as name or free trait deletes an opponent's Digimon, you can trash the top card. So potentially, if you were about to hit a Gaia Force, you trash it, and then you swing into like a little guy. So it's really strong in conjunction with GranKuwaga because with how GranKuwaga works in this, you can pierce through with the effect of Stingmon or something else, and then you just go, okay, so your guy's dead, I trash a security, and I check another security, so you're getting 2 security checks at once, so really strong. And yeah, that's basically all the level 5s we run. You mainly just need these two. I was thinking of bumping this up to 4, but I feel that might actually break the deck. And Dino B, I see him consistently enough in testing that I think this should be fine. And with how the deck is now and with mulligans, you should be able to see this consistently without it breaking your deck. Let's actually get into the level 6s. For level 6s, we run 2 of the Imperial Dramon Dragon mode still from the starter deck. This guy is still really busted in this deck. You get to just play 2 level 4s without paying their cost, which is really cool. You can just summon back any XV or Stingmon underneath him and just go off basically, and next turn and just do it again and again. So really strong. So you have to run at least 2. Then we're running 2 of the new GranKuwagamon from BT12. This guy is actually much different from the other one because the other one focused more on digibursting. Here, he focuses on suspension, which is what green was made to do, basically. He also has an alternate Digivolution cost for 3 on top of Dino B. So instead of 4, you can actually evolve this on top. But most of the time, it doesn't really matter because even if you evolve this on top of Pyodra, he will suspend a Digimon no matter what. And then when you suspend something, you just gain back a memory. So no matter what, this will cost like only 3. And then when you Digivolve, after you suspend them, you can just attack that opponent's Digimon. So it's really strong. The fact that that it can just attack something immediately, which is really cool, and the fact that it gains you back memory is really strong. And with the boost from this, it's going to be 15 with jamming, so it's pretty strong. Like the only thing it might have issue is like against red, maybe you might hit like Omnimon, maybe that's about it. But aside from that, and like maybe Quartz or Def X, you don't really have to care. You're just punching right through. And the only decks that really run Omni are red, which is in this case Wargreymon, which is it's there, but it's not really there in the meta as much. The main thing I would feel like you have to worry about is mainly Quartzmon. Quartzmon is really strong right now still, and it's a 15,000 level 7, so that's mainly the only thing you have to worry about. If there was a way to boost this a little bit higher, I would, but for now, I think 15 is pretty strong, so it's not that big of an issue. So yeah, we only run the 2 here. We don't run any level 7s, so from here, it's just option cards and tamers. So for option cards, we do run the 4 blue memory boost. This does suck kind of because you can't actually hit GranKuwaga, which really sucks. But usually by the time you get this card, you're just playing this for like just to search out another Jogress. Usually you do draw into this sooner than most, which is kind of weird, but that's just how it is sometimes. But Blue Memory Boost just basically searches almost everything in this deck except for like Stingmon and Wormmon and like GranKuwaga, but that's fine because most of the time you're just going to get it from drawing anyway. So running that is fine. Then we run 4 Hammer Sparks because now that we... Hammer Spark is just really strong because it's just... You hit in security, they lose 2 memory, but when you play it, you gain that extra memory, which could actually help you immensely, especially with GranKuwaga. So having 4 is really crucial. Then, of course, we run the 1 Ice Wall because Ice Wall still is one of the most broken blue cards that got hit, and it's still solid even at 1. Then we run 2 Mega Deaths because we do want some removal, and it's really satisfying when your opponent hits right into a Mega Death and their guy gets bounced, because almost every meta deck aside from... actually, never mind. Yeah, no, literally every meta deck right now in Tier 1 cannot stop this because they just don't have protection anymore. The only deck I know of that even really has protection would be like War Greymon, but we don't really see that much of it. And even like Gallantmon that I've been seeing a lot of my locals, it doesn't have protection from this. So you're basically free and clear if they hit this. And then for the last three cards, we run one Davis and two Mimis. It is kind of weird to run one Davis, but I feel it's actually not too bad. I might bump it up maybe to one more, maybe take out like one Hammer Spark or one Memory Boost to put in another Davis. But I feel like this split is actually not too bad for now. You already have a lot of search power. You mainly want to focus on these two as your search because they search 3 types, and that hits GranKuwaga much easier. So outside from that, like this is actually not too bad. Essentially, you have like 9 searchers. Well, 9, and then including that, that's like 13 searchers. So it's not too bad. And then that doesn't count drawing through evolution. So you're basically going to see your cards consistently no matter what. And thanks to mulligans, we don't have to deal with bricks. So this deck is actually very consistent and very strong because the build that I found running the Bancho Stings actually was under was playing with no mulligans. So it's actually very strong with mulligans. So I feel like this deck is just it's decent. Honestly, it's basically just Imperial. It's just Jogressing, but with GranKuwaga as your main hitter, which is not too bad because with in conjunction with Pyodra and Dino Bee, you're basically getting a lot of benefits out of it no matter what. So it's pretty decent. And as I said, you can actually switch out the GranKuwagas for Bancho because Bancho is actually really strong, and I see why they included it as a box topper for BT12 because in conjunction with all the Imperial support, it's actually very strong, and it can actually pierce through a lot of top tier decks like main big guys because it can boost itself up to 16 and have piercing and have security too. So it's really strong. The only downside to running this is that you do not get any benefits from any of the inherits. So that's the only reason I don't run it is because the inherits are just so good in this deck now that running him would be a detriment and would actually kind of hurt you in the end basically in the end run of everything. So it depends. Like I did try 1-1, but I feel GranKuwaga just feels a little bit more solid to search because him being 3-type. Bancho Sting is 3-type. It is you can search him, but I feel it's like you can only search him through those. While GranKuwaga, it's like I feel it just has that extra like suspension power, which I feel is a little bit stronger. And gaining a memory is always solid. I mean, yes, this guy can boost himself, but I feel it's just a little bit better with GranKuwaga. But yeah. Anyway, that's basically the whole deck at the point. I feel like matchup wise, this can keep up pretty well with Beals because of Jogressing still being a broken mechanic to this day, you can essentially evolve for almost nothing, and you can bottom deck a lot of their stuff, which actually does in the end hurt Beals because they need stuff in the trash. And when you bottom deck like let's say they're level 5 and they lose all their stuff, it's really hard for them to recover sometimes, especially if they brick really bad. And then the fact that like suspending their guy actually also hurts them because sometimes they do try to gain that blocker effect through Wizardmon X. So this actually like the suspension parts from this and then just being able to bottom deck that too is really strong. And of course, Megadeth being bounce effects, memory gaining, also other memory gaining, and then making it so they basically have to spend memory to swing is really strong against them. And also the fact that Mimi can just help you keep like basically start a new stack for next turn, which is really powerful still. That's Mimi is honestly one of the reasons why I feel Grandis was so strong because even if Grandis died, you could just make another new stack on that same turn because you gain back so much memory from like suspending their guys because of the Okuamons. But now without that deck, I feel GranKuwaga fits better as a Jogress now, which is really weird to say because we never really had to go this route because usually GranKuwaga is just, burst and just swing like Unga Bunga deck, right? But now it's like because of the hit, we have to adapt. And surprisingly, the new GranKuwaga is decent. It's not as good as the old one, but it's still very decent pick. And it's basically because of it having the Imperial engine behind it, it is very strong because of that. Because Imperial Dramon has gotten so much good support recently that it is actually technically one of the best decks in the format. So the fact that it can use all those amazing cards and still be able to do everything that it kind of did before is really cool. I mean, it does suck that we can't go Grandis, but that's just how it is. But yeah, no, I highly recommend trying this deck out. It may seem really strange to run like an Imperial deck that doesn't go into like fighter mode, but if you actually play this, you'll see how strong it is. It's very fun too to play because your opponent is just expecting, oh, he's probably just playing Imperial, right? Oh yeah, he's playing Dinobi or like Pyodra. Oh yeah, he's gonna go into fighter mode. Nah, he's gonna go into GranKuwaga, and then they'll be like, oh no, because then their guy gets hit, and then they have to restart, and they're screwed for next turn. And then you can capitalize on that and just win the game, which is really solid. Anyway, as usual, as I say, I like to put out this deck profile so that you guys can use it and maybe adapt to using this now, because now that we don't have the old Grandis, it really sucks. Like the deck just can't function without the 4 copies. So we have to change it up, maybe go with a different engine like this. So yeah, um, as usual, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you thought of the deck, and I'll see you guys next time.